every little step that you would ever take. As we grew older, you couldn't stop, tying yourself into way too many knots. Just relax and feel the flow. It's time for you to let it all go. Catch the waves as they're rolling in. Reach up higher and go follow the sun. Let the breeze come and drift away. Can you feel the fire as you follow the sun? Settle down, just take a breath, and your worried thoughts will slowly fade away. Live in the moment, don't look back. Allow your heart to run free and you'll stay on track. Just relax and feel the flow. It's time for you to let it all go. Catch the waves as they're rolling in. Reach up higher and go follow the sun. Let the breeze come and drift away. Can you feel the fire as you follow the sun? Just relax and feel the flow. It's time for you to let it all go. Catch the waves as they're rolling in. Reach up higher and go follow the sun. Let the breeze come and drift away. Can you feel the fire as you follow the sun? Catch the waves as they're rolling in. Reach up higher and go follow the sun. Let the breeze come and drift away. Can you feel the fire as you follow the sun?
All right, I see you. I see you want to give up. We're not doing that. Hold on. Give me a second. Listen. All right. When you give up, you allow today to win. And I know today sucked. Today is horrible. Screw what happened today. But you know what? Tomorrow promises an opportunity. And when you give up on tomorrow's opportunity, you give up on yourself. Do not give in. Do not give in and give up. Tomorrow promises better. We owe it to ourselves to give us tomorrow. So listen here. We're not giving up, okay? We're going to keep fighting. You are stronger than you ever knew because you stand here today because you survived 100% of your worst days. You have not lost to any of your days, and you're not going to lose today, okay? So keep fighting. Keep going. If you need anything, there is Snapchat in my bio. Please contact me. I will talk to any of you. Message me on here if you don't have that. It doesn't matter. We stand together and we keep fighting, okay?
Hey, Trevor. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for sharing that video, too. That was awesome. Oh, and Marshall, you're here. You're not too late, son. Can you hear us, Marshall? You're muted, dude. I don't know. He'll get it. But anyway, thank you for joining me, Trevor. I have been seeing, let me grab Trevor's link for you guys again, and I'll drop it throughout. But I have been seeing the videos that you have been putting out recently, and I loved it. So I reached out to you last week, and I thought, hey, let's go live and talk about this because it's something that I feel your age group, both yours and Marshall's age group, aren't talking about enough. I don't, the stigma around it, but I love what you're trying to do.
Well, thank you. And I absolutely agree. I think it's something that people are sometimes uncomfortable to talk about, and then it leaves it untouched. And that's just not good for the stigmas and for people suffering through any mental health issues.
No, it's really not. Hang on, let me try messaging him and see what is up.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Marshall. So, Marshall, you and Trevor are about the same age. And so, of course, I thought about, some of your own struggles that you shared on social media when I saw Trevor's videos. And I thought it was just really important that you guys get this message out there to more and more people. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of it's a thing that, even growing up, you kind of just be like, oh yeah, you're a dude, just brush it off, that sort of thing. So,
Absolutely.
I think it's important that, more men start talking about this, and, that it is out there, basically, because we are human too. So,
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Tragedy Pimps, for dropping all of those links. I totally appreciate that. Oh, the semicolon tattoo. AMAC, I love that. So what do you guys find to be the biggest struggle when it comes to, I was looking up some statistics, and it said that the level of comfort discussing mental health by age, so your age range would be the 18 to 24 age range, is that 58% are not comfortable discussing their mental health with a family member, and 83% are not comfortable discussing their mental health with a prospective employer. So where do you think, and I think in my generation and even older, they're just not comfortable at all discussing mental health, but people are becoming more and more aware, more and more comfortable. I do feel like, I don't know, almost like your generation's trying to break that mold, break those chains and that habit of the stigma surrounding mental health.
yeah, I'll let Trevor answer this one first if he wants.
Oh, Miss Leah. Trevor, we can't hear you. You might be muted, or I don't know if you're there or not.
Well, I know for, oh, there he goes.
Oh, there we go.
Um,
Okay, he'll
he's
pop
gone.
back up.
He'll come back. It's okay. But yeah, I definitely see that, our generation wants to break that mold. It's easier to talk about, I know, with some of my like men's groups that, it's like, hey, listen, like we need each other, we need that support, that sort of thing. And I don't know what the deal is with like older generations, because I mean, obviously growing up in our current generation, like it's always kind of been this way where it's like, hey, it's okay to talk about these things, it's okay to, um to be able to come out and say, hey dude, like I'm not okay right now,
I'm
like I
struggling.
need,
Yeah, it's okay to
I
not
need,
be okay.
yeah. And it's okay to, tell your friends or family member, like, hey, like I'm struggling right now, like it's a real deal. We want to be able to, you know express ourselves a little bit. So
Welcome back, Trevor. Are you there with us?
You hear me?
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Well,
Did you hear the question? I just want to make sure you heard that.
yes, I did. I actually started answering, then I got a phone call and it screwed up my whole thing,
No,
so I had to
I
jump back in.
understand. I understand.
But so what I was going to say is, I feel like, at least for me, what it's been is it really depends on how receptive you feel like a person's going to be to what you say, because not everybody's going to necessarily shut you down, but some people may just kind of listen and not really take it in and not really feel what you're bringing up. And usually you feel very vulnerable when you bring up your emotions or your mental health struggles at the time. So it's having more people that are willing to not only hear you, but actually listen and understand and be able to, whether it's just listening and knowing that they're listening and taking it in, or giving you advice, being there for you, whatever it may be, but somebody who's going to be receptive and really understand that you're dealing with something right now.
Yeah, exactly. So Rue asked, why would you discuss your mental health with an employer? I don't know why that one was a question.
I can kind of
All
speak
right,
to
hit
that
us.
with like I can kind of speak to that with like the Air Force a little bit. So like this is I mean, that's something where it's like like we joke about it. It's like, hey, if you're like, no one really ever has issues or anything like that, but it's like a serious thing. It's like, hey, listen, if you are struggling, like please come talk to your first sergeant, please talk to, anyone, please talk to your chain of command, like anything like that. If things aren't going well at home, like, anything like that, like please come talk to your chain of command, because they don't want, like they invest a lot of money into you, basically. Like they don't want
True.
you to like, they don't want you to be upset. They want you to be in a good headspace. And especially like what I do working on airplanes, like they want you to be in that great headspace. So I can understand people not wanting to talk to their employer about it, but I know, just coming from like my perspective, like, you probably need to talk about this. And also, like, my future perspective, with teaching, like, do you want someone who's having a bunch of mental health issues to be teaching your kids? Like, it's one of those things too, I see.
Well, if you're, seeking help and reaching out, then there shouldn't be a stigma around it.
No, no, exactly. I feel like there should be an open conversation between that. If I'm having issues as a teacher, I should be able to go to my principal and say, hey, listen, like, things aren't going good right now. But
Right. I agree, Queen Bella. So many think it shows a sign of weakness. And I feel like especially in men, I don't know if that's a stigma that men put on themselves or if we put it on men, but it does come across as a sign, like people interpret it as a sign of weakness when it's absolutely not a sign of weakness to discuss your mental health at all. I didn't know if you guys wanted to share your stories. Now, I know, Trevor, you had on your platform. And so if you want to share them here, that'd be great. If you don't, totally understand that as well.
I can absolutely share my story for sure.
Love to hear it.
So so my worst mental health struggles took place a couple of years ago. I was suffering from depression and anxiety, and I'm going to discuss this a single day because this is really where everything kind of hit home. And so I'd been struggling for a while, and thoughts of harming myself, things like that, just was really in a dark place. And there was one night I had just a bad day with it. My relationship was going bad with friendships, and everything just seemed to be falling apart. So I had there's this basketball court in my town that I always want to play at night. They keep the lights on just in the back of a church parking lot. That night I drove to that parking lot with a bottle of stomach medication that I had in my cabinet. And on my way there, I had Googled how many to take to end my life. So when I got there, I decided that was going to be the last day, that I just couldn't take it anymore, and that I was going to end my life. And so I was out there and doing what I loved the most, what I felt like the only thing that I could do was play basketball. And something just, it hit me, whether it was the power of God or whatever it was, by the time that I was really falling apart, just saved me then. And I drove home quickly that night, threw away that medication, and started to seek help.
I'm so proud of you for doing that. I know that is incredibly hard to do, to stop yourself in that moment. Like, you get there and you had it all planned out, and to be able to stop and realize that you're absolutely worth it. You're worth staying here earthside as long as humanly possible. I'm incredibly proud of you for doing that, and then seeing what you're doing now, taking that opportunity to share with others, to influence others, and try to break the stigma about mental health. I think it's just simply a great thing. And then to have, young men your guys' age be so awesome. I'm so proud of it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I feel like it's one of those things where once you go through something like that, you feel not an obligation, but you just feel like I know what it feels like to be at that point. And there's not a human on this earth that I would wish that on. So I hope I can, just through whatever platform I use or whatever I talk on, to hopefully reach someone before they hit that point, or if they're there, help try to save them as well.
Amen. Amen. Bruce said, thank you for doing that too, because look at all the people you have helped since then, just by sharing your story. And that's so true. We're just sharing out your stories and talking about them. It has such a huge impact on people. I know I've touched a little bit on what our family has went through with the loss of my in-laws, but just sharing that story sometimes helps connect with other people and just helps people to know that this is normal. It's absolutely normal it's okay to not be okay, because we all go through these periods.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing, is it's okay. Like, it's not over. It's, you've hit a part in your life, and it sucks, and it hurts, but it's something that you can come back from. Just please, talk to someone, let someone know, at least let someone listen to you, so you're heard.
Agreed. And there are so many resources out there. I dropped 988 in chat, but if you're not comfortable calling that, just contact someone in your life, contact anyone and everyone, and they'll be able to, someone that you can speak with to get you through that moment. Oh, cotton candy said, I lost my 27-year-old son to suicide. The worst pain in the world. It is cotton candy. Absolutely the worst pain in the world, because those left behind are always wondering the why.
Mhm.
Always wondering the why. Did you want to share any about your mental health struggles at all, Marshall, or no? You just want to?
Yeah, I can. I had a few instances growing up where, like, you know, I never felt worthy of, you know, like, uh, friends or anything like that. I always felt like, you know, I was kind of an outcast in that sense. I was popular, like, I mean, I was a popular kid in school, but I never had, like, you know, a specific friend group that I really ran around with for the most part. And especially once I graduated, you know, I moved to a different town, didn't really have like a lot of friends like around me or anything like that. So I really struggle with that. Um, and you know, I kind of I was getting to that point. I never got to, you know, the point that, you know, Trevor got to. Um, but I could tell I was kind of on that trajectory, and it's kind of
Yeah.
ironic. Basketball ended up saving me too. So I
Yeah.
just remember I came home from work one day, and I mean, basketball has always been my love. I love it. I coach it now. It's, you know, it's a thing that, you know, it truly like, it's crazy like how basketball connects people and
Mhm.
how it impacts people's lives. But one of my buddies texted me. He's like, "Hey, you know, me and a couple guys that I used to play with in high school or play against in high school, they're like, hey, we're going up to the YMCA right now. You know, if you want to come up and like hoop with us, like that'd be cool." And so I ended up going up, and like I contemplated not going because I hadn't played basketball in a couple months, but I went up there. I played basketball with them, and you know, it was a fun time. Played for 2 or 3 hours or whatever. We went out to eat later that night, and I was talking about how I wanted to be a basketball coach, and like, you know, like how I think I had just dropped out of college right after my freshman year too, so I really didn't have a plan in life for the most part. And then one of the guys was like, "Well, you know, they're looking for an assistant coach over at this high school, you know, where my mom works." He's like, "You should check it out and see if you can get it." And I ended up, you know, I emailed about it. I ended up getting the job and whatnot. And that coaching, I mean, I've coached for 4 years. I'm going into my fifth year coaching, and I mean, it's really turned my life around. I mean, I ended up joining the Air Force, and then. You know, I've coached for X amount of years. I went back to school. Like, I'm in school right now to become a teacher. Like, so it was just that one moment in my life that, you know, it's kind of a big impact. And I actually saw that guy probably about a year ago. He joined the army, and so he lives over in North Carolina now. But I ended up talking to him. I was like, "Dude, you realize like you changed my life, right? Like you kind of like low key saved my life." And he's just like, "Really?" And I told him that story, and he's like, "Dude, I had no idea." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, like I consider you to be one of my best friends, even though we don't talk that often. Like
Oh,
you're definitely one of the guys that changed my life." So reaching out, like just him reaching out and like talking to me, I mean that, you know,
did he know you
definitely.
were going through something, or did he just randomly reach out?
No, I had no clue. He had no clue. Like I probably hadn't messaged him in a couple of months, and so yeah, he just randomly reached out because he knew I lived in town. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's crazy just by reaching out to people. Um,
So
you
that
know,
you
you
would say that's like a big thing we need to do, is reach out to our loved ones, or people we haven't heard from in a while. Just
hmm
try to connect as much as possible that way.
yeah, I agree. I
I
agree.
was looking at some of the statistics here, and there's suicide is the second leading cause of death in young adults. Or, well, this is more teens, but it goes a little bit into your guys' age group. That was mind blowing to me. I didn't know that statistic before looking it up before this, and it's a rough one. What do you think about COVID? The impact that has had on mental health applied to your generation? Because in my opinion, I feel like it would have had a huge impact. You all were, well, Marshall, your sister was, her entire senior year was cut short, and then her freshman year was just basically nothing, online. And I know that there were a lot of young adults going through very similar set of circumstances, and so they're already going through a time that's a struggle for anyone in life, graduating high school, moving into college, and then you add on all these lockdowns that were happening and shutdowns. And so I just want to ask you both, what impact do you feel like COVID had? Did it, make it worse, or do you even notice that it did any difference?
Right. Trevor, what were you in school when that happened?
Yeah, so I actually was graduating in 2020. I graduated high school the year that all happened.
Same, that's what my daughter did. Yep.
Yeah. So, you could probably speak to it a little bit better than me because, like, I wasn't in school at the time or anything like that. So, you probably see it a little bit more firsthand.
Right, it definitely was. I mean, it definitely was something that took. I mean, it paused everything. I mean, I feel like the whole world went on just pause, and so it's one of those things where everything was just different. I mean, graduation got moved months later. Proms were canceled. College was set to start
Mhm.
online, and prior to now, nothing was really done online. It wasn't like normal to do Zoom classes and all things like that. So everything was very abnormal. And I had worked in childcare during the time of COVID, or up to the time of COVID, and so that was a very big change of being hands on, being in the spaces with the kids, and then everything just stopping and staying home. So a lot of isolation, I feel like, set in, and so for me, it
Yeah.
definitely took that toll of like not being around people, not that interaction both in school, at work. So I think it definitely played a role where we were all isolated.
Had a big impact on mental health. Well, you
Yeah.
were you were in college, Marshall. So
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
I just
it
dropped
impacted.
out, but a
That's
lot
right.
of I mean, a lot of my friends, they were in school and whatnot. But I just remember like not being able to go places or anything like that. Like I remember me and my girlfriend at the time, like, it was like, hey, what do you guys want to do? We couldn't like go anywhere because all the restaurants were closed. So like it's just super annoying. But yeah, it like for me, it impacted, I think, in a different way. I got to work a lot more
Mhm.
since everything was shut down. Like I know a lot of my friends, like they basically went from being part timers to full timers because we had the stimulus checks come in and everything, and they went from working maybe their 4 hour shifts after school or after practice or something like that to now they were working like full 8 hour shifts because they weren't going back to school, but also the fact that we were having to wear masks and everything like that. It was just a whole big debacle. I mean, and people at that time, people just lost their mind. It just just was not a good time for everyone. So,
No, I don't
but
think
yeah,
it was.
it definitely like I definitely think it impacted our generation negatively. I saw it with my basketball boys. Um, like there's kids that lost basically an entire, well, most of a basketball season here, and so it was just like you could just see they were super disappointed. Like we had one kid who probably would have came close to breaking our school record, but his season got cut short. So I mean, he didn't even get a chance to. There's a couple other kids that they hit 800, 900 points, and it's like, well, they had half of a COVID season, so it's like, yeah, they lost out on potentially being 1,000 point scorer in their high school career, being kind of a highlight within their high school career, and so I could definitely see how it impacts that just from a coach's perspective.
Absolutely. So it says here that 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14, and then 75% begins by age 24. So when you guys are, entering, you're already in that awkward phase of, being a teen and then entering young adulthood. That's when a lot of mental health issues are triggered. And we see that happening over and over. My question would be like, do you guys have any advice for, I guess, what to do in those when those situations hit? Like, Trevor, before you were driving up to that basketball court, like, you had this plan in mind and you were going to execute it, and like you said, divine intervention, if it was God that stopped you or whatnot, what would you suggest to other kids that are, or not, sorry, not kids, young adults that might find themselves in that same situation where they're just ready to end it all and maybe they don't have that divine intervention? Would you have any advice for them?
I feel like with that, two things come to mind for me. One would be on your way to that point, because usually there's a build up to that, is please, if you feel that point coming, to reach out, whether it be to a professional or to someone you know, whether it be a friend, doesn't matter. You know, whether you're calling the hotline, whether you're setting up an appointment at your school with a counselor, or just speaking to someone that you know. I've spoken to my friends about my mental health more than I have a lot of people, because it's just somebody that I know will listen and not just kind of feel uncomfortable or shy away from me. And the second thing, and I did mention it in the video, the one that you played at the beginning, is give tomorrow a chance. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's like today can hurt as bad as it can get. But when you keep giving tomorrow a chance, you give that opportunity for better. Because when you don't give tomorrow a chance, you let today and the bad parts of today win. Because contrary to what our minds try to tell us, we've beat 100% of our hard days, and we'll continue to do that as long as we give tomorrow a chance.
That is so true. I love that. That's really beautiful, because we think that this is the worst. But there's always a new day. It's always a fresh start, right? And I think that the hardest step is definitely just taking that moment and reaching out to someone. And my suggestion would be, though, if you need to reach out to someone and you're ashamed of the stigma about why you're reaching out, just reach out to have a conversation. Because sometimes I know when I am going through things, just calling my girlfriend and talking about whatever, whether it be the weather or shopping or whatever, just having a conversation about anything definitely improves my mood. So even if you don't want to reach out to someone about, suicide or what you might be facing or anything like that, just reaching out, having a conversation of any kind is helpful.
Right. I feel like that gives you that purpose. It gives you that feeling that somebody, cares. If they're going to sit there and have a conversation with you for an hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes, whatever, it means they care enough about you to sit and talk to you. So even if you're conversing about something random, it's giving you that feeling of somebody cares and they're there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. One of the moments that I had when I was younger, and this was after, everything with my grandparents had just happened. It was probably a year after that, and so I mean, I really didn't grieve right after, like directly afterwards, but I was in the car with one of my buddies, and I was telling him about, like, I was like, dude, like, I just don't, I was like, I don't know, dude, like, this doesn't seem right. Like, I don't know why me, that sort of thing. And I'm like, what if I just did the same thing and just decided to, end it? I had no intention of doing that whatsoever, but like, let's just entertain the thought of this. And so he stopped me right there, and he basically told me, like, he went through our like entire class. I went to a small school, so didn't conversation wasn't that long, but he was just like, this is how you impact every person's life, and you don't even know it. And so he went through, and he basically he just told me that he's like, you impact this person because it's like you see them in algebra, and you make them laugh whenever you do this funny little thing or whatever, like just by him. And I mean, that was kind of a breaking point too. Like, I mean, it doesn't even have to be that. Like, he could have just talked to me about basketball. I would have felt fine. But, the fact that he kind of elaborated that to me, it was just like, okay, yeah, I never want to do that, like, to other people. Like, why would I want to give up? I think people enjoy me. Like, that might be a selfish take, but like,
No, people do.
but
And
it's
I
like,
think
yeah, I feel like if you take away a piece of someone, as minor as it would be, it's still kind of a sad moment,
it is. We've talked about what we went through with the murder suicide, and I think a lot of people, I know they say it, I don't know if they actually mean it or they believe it, but that no one's going to miss me when I'm gone. I've heard that a lot. And I can tell you, we absolutely do. Absolutely do. It's the impact of those left behind when you choose to commit suicide. It's unbelievable. They do miss you in the weirdest times, the weirdest moments, but you are wanted and you are loved. And it's easy to forget that when the next part I want to talk about, I want to hear your guys' input on this, because it's the only world you've known, but it's easy to forget that when things are so warped or crazy on social media. And so I am part of that generation where, we didn't have the internet until like junior high, and social media wasn't big until after I was out of high school. So I had both, but you guys have only ever known a world where social media reigns supreme and is prevalent. What do you think that impact has had on mental health in young adults?
Man, social media sucks, but it's also, I mean, I
Yeah.
mean, like, to be honest, social media sucks, but like, it's also the reason we're here right now. I mean, we're using social media to get a platform out to talk about
Right,
these issues.
right.
So, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, but I know, like, it's easy to talk about with like young women, like with all the beauty standards and everything like that. Like, I mean, it's and even young men too. Like, I don't know how you feel about this, Trevor, but like, man, like the ads that like I get, and it's like I see some of these male models, and I'm like, dude, I am nowhere near that. Like,
Absolutely.
I am nowhere near that good looking. Like, I was like, no one's ever gonna want me because of
Comparison
that.
is the devil.
Oh
It'll
yeah,
steal your joy.
yeah, and I think that's a number one thing that social media. I think that's a big culprit of social media is just that comparison factor. So I don't know, Trevor, if you got any other things you got to say about that.
No, I 100% agree. I think there's a huge, I think divisiveness and comparisons are the two things that social media is bad about. I think that's what makes it, where it tears apart people's mental health. And that's where the struggle comes from. Because like you said, you see these people, whether it's an advertisement or a picture of somebody's post, and then you want to compare yourself, or you think, I'm not there or I can't get there. And then
Right,
also I
right.
feel like whatever you want to use, whatever you want to input here, politics, religion, doesn't matter. There's huge divisiveness on social media. And it feels like people are at such a war to drag each other down that also just pits against our mental health, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I've never been like cyberbullied or anything like that. Like at least if I have, I'm too dumb to realize it. But like I know that like some of my friends that are girls, they've talked about it's like, oh dude, I can't believe what this girl said to me online and blah 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 blah. Like, you know, I can't believe some of it. When you're sitting behind a screen, I guess it's a lot easier for people to say these things. I never really look at it like that. It's like there's a person on the other side of this. Like,
Right.
they have feelings too. That's how I've always seen it. But I know that some people are just get on there and just start talking trash. It's like, for what, you know?
Oh, you're absolutely correct, Marshall. Hakab, you're right. That's what it does. It transfers the pain. When you commit suicide, you transfer the pain that you're carrying on yourself, and you transfer it out to your loved ones that absolutely miss you. And it is an incredible pain when you lose someone that way. Yeah, Melissa, I never really thought, because I mean, they seem so all young people seem strong until they're not, and I guess that's a lot of expectations that we put on others. And I never thought of you guys as looking at ads and media and comparing yourselves to them. So I guess it's across the board. We all tend to compare ourselves to things at times, and it can be a slippery slope. Yeah, it is really not easy at this age. Let me see. I had a couple questions. Let me go to that real quick. Okay, so do you guys find that there's any specific stressors in your life that, can trigger depression or trigger uh, bouts of the blues, whatever you may call them? Do you have like anything in particular? I mean, we talked about social media specifically, but I'm just curious as for a young adult, like what are some things that just trigger these situations for you guys?
Well, I feel like one thing is relationships. I feel like as you're young, there's like this rush to get in a relationship because there's so much going on. People are in very different stages of their lives. Like there are people that I graduated high school with that have kids or that are getting married, and then you have some that aren't even in a relationship. And it's like I feel like when you see people, especially that are near your age group, it kind of pushes not like a standard, but it's almost like am I behind? Am I doing something wrong? Why am I not at that point? And I think that kind of, at least for me in the past, has kind of put that on as a stressor, just overall as you're looking towards your life in general.
Yeah, I agree to that. I know like a bunch of my blue collar friends, like, I mean, they're in the trades, and so they're automatically making, 50, over 50K a year as a 20, 21, 22-year-old. And I mean, it's one of those things, they've got a nice lifted truck and everything like that. And I'm over here like, dang, dude, like, they, I'm like, they're doing pretty good for themselves. Maybe I should like, what am I doing wrong here? But then, you kind of have to look at the end goal, like, hey, I'm
Right.
going to school for this, I get to,
Your
this is,
path is
this is,
different, right?
yeah, it's like, yeah, it's just a different path. It's not necessarily, yeah, they may be ahead in an aspect where you think you might want to be, but it's also at the same time like you're on your own path at this point. Like, I mean, same thing with the relationship. Like, you're on your own path. Like, everyone will eventually meet someone, you know. And if you don't, I mean, you know, God's plan, God works in mysterious ways. Like, that's it. If that's his plan for you, that's his plan for you. And then um but I know, like, getting in a relationship, like, I struggle with this a lot because, like, obviously, like, my sister has always been in a relationship. I mean, like, from the time I was a freshman in high school, like, on, she's always had her husband, and so, like, for me,
Well,
it's
they
like,
weren't married in high school, just that sounded
yeah,
like
just to preface that, but
yes.
they've been together for almost 9 years. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it's just like for the entire time of us, like, growing up, through our adolescence and stuff, like, she's always had that significant other, and I've never really and I've not had that, and so, like, there's that comparison too, like, even just looking at your friends, like, yeah, they're having kids and whatnot, it's like, shoot, like, eventually you just gotta kind of embrace it, I feel like, and she's like, shoot, man, maybe, whenever I'm 30 something, like, this will happen, but, we'll see.
So, Tragedy Pimps Exposed, they said that it's the weather and cold weather for them, and I agree. I always get a little more down in the dumps in the winter and absolutely perk back up as soon as I can open our pool, but there are triggers like that where it's seasonal and whatnot.
Your seasonal
Absolutely.
depression mixed with the regular depression.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, Perfectly was telling a story here. Where was the first part of it? Her daughter was bullied by a mob on Twitter, all for using someone's wrong pronoun. And she said it was really messed up. She didn't take it personally. She knew it was just people hating to hate. And it could have just been a slip. And yeah, we see that all the time. People just, we forget to think about what it does to the other person, don't we? I had to stop asking my number two son about a girlfriend. I would joke with him all the time about it, but I realized it might start getting to him, so I've laid off. He's a kid that wants his shit together. Right. I mean, I do you we have to come to that realization a lot that, our words have power. And even if we think we're just joking or messing around, it can mean a lot more to them. Because I know we tease Marshall all the time about his girlfriends and stuff. And so I wouldn't want to get to him on that level at all. Let's see here. So, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States overall. That's crazy. And one of every 4 Americans experience an illness or substance use disorder each year. 1 in 4. That number was astronomical to me that so many are experiencing it. So, this next question goes hand in hand. So, there's the stigma surrounding mental health. We're not discussing it enough. We're not having these open, real, and raw conversations enough. But another thing that I think has a stigma around it is that it's an actual illness. And, taking medication for it is not a bad thing. But I do see a lot of people still with that stigma of, oh, it's just in your head, let it go. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Or do you have any?
I'll say is I'm medicated for anxiety, so I understand both sides of that because there was a while where I just refused. I was like, you know, people were like, hey, it could really help you, and I'm just like, no, I could push through it. I can get through whatever the depression or the anxiety, and I finally came to a point where I was like, I can do my part, but it's not going to hurt to get help. And so I did finally see someone, and now I am medicated. And it's one of those things. It's like we've probably all had some kind of physical health issue. Hopefully nothing too serious, but you get
Right.
sick, you get strep throat, stomach bug, whatever you want to call it, or whatever you want to, whatever happens to you, and you go to the doctor and you get medicated for it, and it's normal. You know, your doctor gives you an antibiotic for your issue, and it helps, and you think, you
Right.
know, grateful for that medication. And I just hope we can kind of get to a point where we see mental health the same way, where it's like you go to the doctor for a broken leg, you go to the doctor because you're struggling too much with depression, and then you can seek medication and still go about your life not altered by it, but only being helped by getting that help.
Yeah, and to help your point on that, it's not that it doesn't always have to be like a medication, like if you go through like you do break your leg or something like that, you got to go through physical therapy. It's like, well, mental therapy, that's a thing too, like helping you get over that thing too. Having the
Exactly.
yeah, having the
100%.
therapy to go along with that. Yeah, I mean, you need that as well.
100%.
Well, and there was someone who mentioned it earlier. There's a stigma around going, I think it was Bieber who mentioned it. There's a stigma about seeking therapy. And I do know a lot, like my parents were of that generation of, oh, you don't need to go see a therapist. Like, you don't need to go tell someone else your problems. Just call your friend or tell, something like that. But my husband and I, we're very big advocates on seeking out therapy for whatever issues you may have because it truly does help. It works and it's extremely beneficial. We cannot express it enough. And I know it took us a long time to get Marshall to realize that there are benefits from going and seeking out therapy. Um, do you is there an issue with that amongst your guys' age group, or do you think that again more and more of those chains are breaking away and people are realizing, yeah, that's not a problem to go talk to a therapist?
I mean, personally, I think it's more a men issue than anything. I feel like women generally like to talk about their feelings a little bit more rather than men do, and I think that's just a biological thing. But yeah, I think it, especially. I mean, it's still even hard for me. Like, I have gone to therapy and everything like that, but it's still even hard to like reach out and be like, hey, like I need to go see. It's hard admitting
Mhm.
that you need help, especially as a man. Like, I mean, even if I'm working out in the garage or something like that, and it's like, and I need another person to help me with something, I don't want to admit that. Like, I want to be able to do it myself. I want to be able to figure it out myself, and so I think that's more just a men issue altogether. But yeah, I could definitely see our generation like starting to break that. I mean, I know a lot of my friends my age, like we've started to talk about this a little bit more, and we have the support and accountability and stuff like that. We check up on each other, that sort of thing. So I
I
don't know
love
if
it.
Trevor feels the same way, but
No, I absolutely agree. And I think it's definitely a thing. I feel the same way where just in general, you have a task and you're like, I can get it done. Like I was working on something to do with my car a few months ago and I couldn't get it, but I was working on it for so long. And then suddenly when the neighbors came over and he helped me and he got it out. But like I spent way too long doing it on my own because I wouldn't just say, hey, can you come help me? And I feel like we do the same thing. It's like, we can push through this, we can push through this, but sometimes we just need to stop and say, hey, I can push through this, but I also need help. And I think
Mhm.
that's important to be able to do. And I also agree about conversation. Me and my friends are like that now, but years ago it wasn't that way. It was, for my friend group then, it was like, something you didn't talk about. So being able to share that with other people then opens them up to talk about it. And I feel just creates a community there of people who all feel safe discussing their emotions.
So just being the first one to open up the door to the conversation has helped because maybe others are just afraid to do so.
yeah,
Because then it
absolutely.
becomes more normalized. Then it's like, hey, I can
Mhm.
text my group chat or I can text that one friend. I want to be like, I talk to my friend a lot and I'm like, he's the same way. I know he could pick up the phone and be like, hey, I can talk to Trevor about this. It's not going to be weird. He's not going to look at me differently. We're not going to not be
Right.
friends. Like it's going to be a normal conversation.
He's not going to
I
judge you.
Right.
I think I think every person, I think men specifically, need that one. I know for as a male, like we need another male we can go to talk about these things. It's one thing I can go to you, mom, and talk to you
Mhm.
about some of these issues and one thing, but it's a little bit different whenever I go and talk to dad about it. Like
Oh, for sure.
it's a different. There's definitely a difference, and same thing with your friends. I can tell some of my girlfriends like, hey, like this is going on. But if I talk to my buddies about it, they get it. Like they understand. It's like, yeah, man, hey, we're going through the same thing. Like, it's gonna be all right. Like, we'll help each other get through it, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's definitely having that open conversation, with either a friend or a friend group, anything like that. And I don't think this is a conversation you need to be having every single day, but like, I mean,
No.
it's always good to have, have that conversation. Like, hey, dude, like, we
Or
need
at
to
least,
talk.
yeah, at least start it so that you can find a person that you can have these tough
Hmm.
conversations with for sure.
Definitely
Um,
open that door for that communication. So when it's needed, it's there.
right, right. So, Rue, you bring up a really great point that we need to be realistic about, which is that a lot of people can't afford meds and therapy. Right, therapy is not. I mean, we have amazing insurance, and even on our insurance, therapy is covered at a ridiculously low rate. Like, I want to say it's like five or $100 or $1,000 a year, and then your copays on it, or it's insane how little it covers therapy. That definitely needs to be something that's addressed in our country if we're going to see an improvement there. We need to work with people suffering with these issues. Someone like them could save lives left and right just by acknowledging we're all human and sharing their stories. Yeah, I agree. My daughter has a group chat with a couple of trusted friends where they spill the tea and help each other with their problems. I think we all need that. Um, Got to make sure it doesn't go into some territory sometimes, but yeah, we all need someone that we can vent to. Absolutely. Hey, Sassy. Um, Sonderminds, if you're looking for therapy, they do video calls also. Oh, good to know. That's really good to know. Oh my goodness. My dog's going nuts over here in the other room.
It started thundering here. The dogs were barking a minute ago. That's why I had to mute out.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I had a question. I totally lost my train of thought. Discord has many great groups for mental health. I'm in an R-Anon server now. It's great, and they have voice chat when needed. That's really good, Melissa. That there are places. I know you can contact 988. We've put it throughout. I know Tragedy Pimps Exposed is putting out some resources that you guys can click on if you need to. And those resources are really. What do you think about on Snapchat having an AI person that you guys can talk to anytime? I've never touched it, but I don't know. I'm curious what you guys thought. Is it beneficial? Do you think people could use them in those situations? Like, what are your thoughts on
Personally, I don't trust that fucker one bit.
that?
But no, I could definitely see. I could definitely see how that might help in a situation where you do feel alone.
Shady doesn't
Um,
think so either.
but I don't trust. I personally don't trust it. Like, I'd rather talk to the person at Wendy's than my AI on Snapchat. Like,
Oh, sassafras, yeah. Um, we had some family members go into a deep depression when we lost our loved ones. And it does take a while to dig yourself out of that hole and to feel good enough to just get off the couch. So I'm proud of you for feeling like you can start to be yourself again. It's really hard when we lose our loved ones. I've been on antidepressants for years, no shame in that. When I found out I had breast cancer and needed surgery, the damage done from 40 plus lymph nodes removed. Oh, my anxiety has tripled since that surgery. Oh, I'm sorry, babe. Yep, don't trust AI. That's their takeaway. Don't trust the AI. I'm against AI, but it will happen. People won't know if they're talking to a real person or AI soon enough. That's a very good possibility. So I know, Trevor, before before you started talking about this heavily on YouTube, you were very involved in Summer Wells' missing case and other true crime stories. Do you see an impact in true crime stories from mental health, or true crime cases, I should say, not stories, in mental health? I'm curious what you think about that.
I do, and I see a few different aspects to it. So since I've come on YouTube, I've met some amazing people. I mean, I made some great friends, like including yourself. We've talked behind the scenes.
Right.
I've been in chats, things like that. You don't meet these people without that. So it's one of those things that you do get that connection with people, and you meet great people. Unfortunately,
Yep.
under tragic circumstances that you're covering, but
Mm-hmm.
I do also believe there is that stress impact, and I feel like we have to know, as people that talk about these things, how much we can handle. I think that's big. I've had to step away, even just take a week off of watching or making videos or something just to kind of regroup, because it's a lot sometimes. We're talking about real humans going through terrible things, no matter what happened to them. If we don't know, if we do know, it's just sad situations. And I feel like it does add stress and anxiety if you don't
Yeah, if you
know
don't.
how much you could take and then have to pull back sometimes.
Yeah, I think we call it touching grass around here. It's always good to get offline, go, and even when I say, touching grass, it doesn't necessarily mean even get offline, but sometimes we got to step away from some of those if we can tell that it's starting to affect our mental health and starting to get us to a space that we don't want to be. Yes, Rue, Trevor has a channel. I'll drop it again. Marshall doesn't. He just comes and crashes my panel from time to time, and I knew this would be a great conversation to have him join in. Here is Trevor's. So you shared a previous story, Trevor, that happened with you in your young life. We don't have to share it again. It's on your community tab. And I cried, obviously, but I was just so proud that you put that out there, because I know how hard it has to be to speak on those things. Well, I know how hard it is to speak on those things. And I'm curious, like, what got you to the point to want to share that on such a huge public platform? I'm proud of you for doing.
Well, I really appreciate it. And honestly, I mean, it took a lot. I'm not going to lie. I mean, that was 5 years worth of that shame, emotion, all of it just kind of tangled up. And I just, you swallow it back and you don't talk about it. And I spent 5 years just living with it. And then suddenly it just hit me. And I think part of it is the true crime community. Honestly, I see people who stand up and say, your story matters, victims matter, no matter how long, whatever happened to you, you're speaking out about it, it matters. And I
Right.
think that kind of empowered me to a point where I was like, I can speak out. And so I initially told a few people that I was close with that same story. And then I was like, I need it, as part of breaking my chains, I just need to go all out and put it out there, both to hopefully help someone to also share their story, but also to break my chains where I can make it to the next step of healing in this process.
Was it really like releasing to just put it out there and say, here I am, raw and real. This is me, Trevor. This is what I went through, and I'm here to help you too if you need it.
Absolutely, because it's like just putting it out there. And like I said, and people's support was, amazing. It just made me feel so much better that I made the right choice to speak out. But
Yeah.
also, it was one of those things where I was like, just listen. Like, I just need people to just take a second and read this, even if you don't say a word. Just I just want to know that what I'm saying is falling on ears that will hear it. So I know I'm heard, and when I speak out, it's coming out, because once you let it out, it's never as strongly built up as it was before.
I agree. I love that. I don't know if Queen Bella, are you still in here? You had emailed me before and talked about how you were, she was a counselor for Suicide Hotline for a while. So I didn't know if she wanted to hop up and share anything, but I haven't seen her type in a while. So she might have gotten busy and left. Oh, good. I'm so glad you guys are stepping up to Trevor. You will not be disappointed, because the videos he's been putting out recently, I think they've been very uplifting. And I appreciate you for doing that in this space, because there's not enough of us are.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you having this conversation. I mean, you've got a platform here a lot of people listen to. It's great to bring these issues that aren't always discussed to the forefront.
Right. Oh, Melissa, she wants to know what you guys think. And if you guys have questions for them, go ahead and throw them in here. But what do you think of these new rage rooms? Well, I have been through a rage room and I thought it was fabulous. It feels really great to break some shit. Like, let me tell you, and be able to do it. I mean, you're fully covered in protective wear and all that stuff, and it feels really good to smash a TV for some reason. I don't know why, but it does. What do you guys think about it?
I don't know what a rage room is.
That's what we did down in Nashville for, I think it was Maddie's bridal shower. And you just go into a room full of like a bunch of glass or like old TVs. I think one had like a washer and dryer in it. I mean, they just put stuff in there that you can break. You can just throw it on the floor. They give you sledgehammers. You can smash it. You can just go ham on a bunch of old junk, and it feels really good.
Okay.
What do you think it's a good idea, or you're just kind of like, oh, that's weird, go break something else?
No, I mean, I could see how that would help. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, my stress relief is like going and getting shots up, like playing basketball. So, like, I mean, like, yeah, I could definitely see, like, I could definitely see how that would help some people just get frustration out.
It did. It did. I wasn't even that frustrated, and it was fun.
I actually
Yeah.
agree about basketball there, Marshall. That's the thing. I'm like having a really bad day. I just load up and go. Like I said, whether it's outdoor court, indoor court doesn't matter. Just go get some shots up.
Well, so that brings up a great point. Diet and exercise. Like, do you notice an impact on your mental health when you are lacking in diet and exercise as opposed to when you're investing the time into it?
Oh, 100%.
Mhm.
I tweaked my back the other day, so I haven't been able to like work out as much. I was able to get shots up over the weekend for like an hour or so, but like I'm not like I basically got told today, like, hey, don't do anything for like the next couple of days. And so like I'm just sitting here like, no, what am I gonna do? I'm not able to lift. Like, no, this is gonna be terrible. Like, but yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely notice like whenever I take a, 3-day hiatus from the gym or something like that, because we're busy doing something or whatnot, like I definitely notice like a dip in like
Your
my
mood.
mood. Yeah.
Mhm. I can see that. Do you know anything? You're still really young in the military. I don't know if you know anything about resources for our veterans or how
I
that's
don't
going.
I don't know resources. I saw someone put it in the chat.
Yeah, tragedy did, bless her heart.
Um, but I noticed this is a thing that we have one guy in my unit that like I was talking because like I've only known him to be kind of this crazy dude, and like I was talking to the guy that trained underneath him because I went on a trip with him, and I was
Mhm.
like, hey, like what's up with him? Like why is he like this? And it's like, well, it's like some things started happening with his wife and family, and like his wife ended up leaving him, and just a couple other things like his kids kind of disowned him, and so he kind of went off the rails a little bit on that, mixed with the fact that like all the stuff the military gives you and the numerous deployments he's been on and whatnot. Like, uh, he's like, yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. He's like, I wish you would have met him before like everything happened. It's like he was a really good dude, but
How does a
yeah.
deployment impact your mental health? Like, just being away from your friends and family. I mean, I know you form like a brotherhood while you're there or while you're in
hmm
service, but what's it feel like? Besides,
So being deployed sucks. Like, I mean, there's times where it's great because like you're away from everything. There's really not responsibilities. Like when you're deployed, you're only doing your job. Like
yeah,
you're literally only doing your job. You might go out and explore like a city like around you or something like that. But like really it's just the guys you're working with and your job. Like that's basically all you have. So it just gets really frustrating. Like I mean, I know I was like calling and texting home quite a bit, like whenever I was deployed. And I mean, luckily we have the technology to do that now. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine, being 20, I mean, even 10 years ago, like I couldn't imagine like being deployed and not being able to talk to my family like almost every day. Like I had the capabilities to do that whenever I was deployed. And that's awesome that like we have that now. And I think that
right.
definitely like cuts back. I do think that also does raise some issues too. I know like a couple of the guys that are married and have kids and whatnot. I know that they would be calling every single day, and I had an older master sergeant. He was like, "Hey, listen," he's like, "Sometimes you got to put the phone down." He's like, "I know it sucks, and I know you're missing people, but it's like sometimes you got to put the phone down and like realize like, hey, listen, I'm here right now. Like, there's nothing I can do back home. Like, still call and text your
Good
wife
point.
and talk to the kids and whatnot, but it's like understand that like you're here and they're there, like you can't change that right now, like, but and that's the thing. You kind of form a support group a little bit out there, like everyone has their days when you're on deployment. Like I tried to be as happy go lucky as I could, but even me, like I would have my days where it's just like, man, I don't want to be here anymore. It's 110 fucking degrees out. Like I mean, the same three jets have been broken for the past couple of days. Like I'm doing the exact same thing. Like, it's like Groundhog Day basically. Like it's like this is just so freaking boring. And but whenever you get like that, you typically have one guy that's like, "Hey man, like, we're all going through it, that sort of thing. You know, go take a breather, go to the gym, go do something, like give yourself an hour, like go regroup, that sort of thing. So you do kind of form that brotherhood, and I mean, we do definitely like more so when you're at home station than when you're at home station. Like you're definitely looking out for like your wingman's like mental health, like especially being deployed.
It's a great point. It's a great, yeah. So, um, yeah, he's in the military. I lost the question there. It's hard to want to make food or exercise when you are in a deep depression, but scientifically, it is proven to help. It really is. So that's why I said getting off the couch is the first start, and it's also the hardest one. But just getting up and doing something really does help. It really improves a lot of things. Um, I could see how that would help anxiety. Not having to make any decisions, really. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's not the normal awareness and view from military as a whole. That's probably true. Um, but that's again going back to what I've seen in watching Trevor stuff and talking with, Marshall and friends his age and stuff. I really do think that y'all are trying to, that your generation as a whole is trying to shatter these molds and deal with these things so that they don't continue to snowball and compound over the lifetime. And, by the time you are my age, things are not good. So I'm really proud of you guys for taking all these steps, speaking out on these issues. Do you see like a lot of it? Because I don't know about you, Trevor. I know you, Marshall. You're bigger on TikTok. Do you see a lot of these conversations taking place, or like people making TikToks and stuff about these interactions and speaking up about the stigma of mental health, or no?
I mean, I'm not really on that side of TikTok. Um,
Your
like,
algorithms don't have that. I
nah,
don't know
man.
how it works fully.
I'm all memes and basketball stuff. Like, I mean, that's my TikTok. But no, I mean, I've definitely seen a couple of things like where it's like, hey, like like you're having a rough day, like that sort of thing. Like, and it's short little skits that people do, and it's just basically talking about reaching out and talking to people, more or less.
Right. So just the connection part's important, right? So
Yeah.
Beaver asked, did you feel like when you joined that it made you grow up or be more mature to a degree? If so, did that impact your mental health?
Um, yes and no. So, like, I coached a year of basketball before going to basic training because basic training is, I mean, that was that was honestly harder than being deployed because I didn't have like my phone to talk to people and whatnot. Like there was no resource. Like all we had was literally the 40 of us. So like we leaned very, very heavily on each other. And so I was in kind of a leadership position. So it was just I was always making sure that like my guys were happy, like and like that we were like trying to get along, like that sort of thing, like just trying to lift everyone's mood. Um, but uh, but yeah, I did definitely mature a little bit because it just made me realize like how different people are. Like, being around people that are from all parts of the US and some out of country. Like, I mean, it was crazy. Like, it was crazy just seeing how people had different viewpoints on everything and whatnot. Like, I remember I bunked next to a guy that was from Indianapolis. He went to uh, one of the hardest like schools in Indianapolis, like in terms of like gangs and whatnot, and like just talking to him, like his perspective about stuff, completely different than me from a podunk town.
Right.
And I mean, we only grew up, 2.5 hours apart, so it's just one of those things where it's like he just had a completely different perspective on life, and like I was always trying to bring his mood up because he was always in an atmosphere where like hey, like it's meant to suppress. So like just trying to keep other people happy. Like that's how I matured is like looking out for other people more or less.
Okay, so that brings a great question to mind. So I've noticed a lot of things that have affected my mood lately is these energy vampires. People that literally just suck the life out of you for various reasons. Do you guys encounter that, and what do you do to combat it? I'm curious from a male perspective. Do you know what I'm talking about with an energy? That person that just no matter how hard you try, they just suck that life right out of you, the oxygen out of the room, or you're just like, oh, I can't deal with this right now. So what do you do to combat people like that?
I feel like for me, it's like there's a point where you just have to distance from that, whether it's like a person or it has to do with an activity. It's like if that if that energy, for lack of better use, is present, that person that's pulling all that down, it's just like you have to separate because you have your energy and you're feeling great. You can't have somebody who's always going to be there to kind of suck it out. And there's always going to be those people because some people just want to unfortunately drag the room down or drag you down. And I feel
Right.
like you just at some point have to kind of distance from that to make sure that you're not letting it take control of you.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, and I mean, on the opposition of that, I mean, even Eeyore had Winnie the Pooh. So I mean, like you still need, like, even if you are an Eeyore and like you're down in the dumps and whatnot, like you still need that person to help you out, you know?
Yeah, that's true. You still do. Oh, Hakab, yes, that's my thing too. Is I just love to travel, and it does improve my mood. Like, as long as I don't have to plan the itinerary anymore, but I love to just get out and go. Whatever we can do, go and do it. See the world, see places. It's a huge improvement. Shady works on her landscaping. I love that. Yours, your spirit animal. Oh my god. Yeah, constant complainers, those type of people are there's just a lot of things, and it might even be your own hurts and hangups that trigger someone to feel like an energy vampire to you when they might not be at all. It could just be you that they drain, and so it's absolutely okay to walk away from that. I wish I had a horse to go. Books? You guys turning towards a lot of books these days to help with separating from things?
I read.
Yeah.
I don't read. I don't read at all. I
I
do
don't read
listen to
as much as I
podcasts
should.
though.
Oh my goodness.
Podcasts do help. I will say that podcasts do help.
Yeah, you listen to a lot of podcasts, which, oh, Trevor, can you put, I don't know if you can. Let me see if I can grab, Trevor is starting a podcast, or have you been on it yet?
I haven't released the first episode yet, but it's coming. It's coming soon.
Okay, so let me get that link real quick because that'll be good for you. Or do you have a link for it yet? Is it just, oh, yeah, there it is. So you guys can, I don't know how podcasts work. I just occasionally listen to it, like when I'm Googling for them. I don't know if you can subscribe to them, however that works, but you can follow
Yeah.
him on there and listen to his future podcasts.
And that link will take you to a website, and it's going to have, once I put episodes out, they'll be on there, and then there'll be like blogs. I just put kind of like similar to what I'm putting on podcasts, just typing it out.
And it's
Sometimes
also on his community page of his channel here. So if you don't want to do it right now, I'm sure you'll probably post something when you put your first one out, right?
Definitely.
So there you guys can grab it off of there. Yeah, Trevor's podcast. That'll be awesome. I know. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm very excited.
Stories. Does reading true crime count? I guess it depends on how it affects you. Hakab, I love planning the itineraries too, but I really hate it when they go wrong. Don't I, Marshall?
Yeah, I don't follow the itinerary.
He never follows the itinerary, so it's just like,
I was
forget it.
I was talking to my girlfriend about that the other day. I was like, I'm glad you're punctual because I'm most definitely not. Like, I showed up an hour late to that baby shower, so
Oh,
yeah,
I'm with you. I'm more of a what's the plan kind of guy, not here's the plan kind of guy.
yeah. I'll
I'm
throw
so
out suggestions, but I'm never making it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so pent up most of the time, and I spend a lot of time by myself. So when I do talk to people, get around people, I feel like I become the energy vampire because I consume. Oh, you consume their energy. So that would make you the energy succubus, right? I don't know. It would be the opposite of a vampire, though, because you're the one taking it. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. No. So while Morgan, while she had her baby shower, her husband had a bro shower where they all got together and they brought like a drinks and a box of diapers. And we're halfway through his sister's baby shower. He calls me. He's like, "Hey, what am I supposed to get?" And I'm like, "Aren't you supposed to be there now?" It was so late. It was horrible. Oh my gosh. You're okay to I'm okay to veer off of it. Yeah. Just not like go I don't know. It just depends. If I take the time to put it together, I kind of want to stick to some of it, but I am the spontaneous one of our family. If Marshall calls and says, "Hey, let's go to Nevada." I'm like, "All right, let's go." We enjoyed that. Yeah, they had a bro shower. It was cool. So we've been on here a little over an hour. Is there anything else that you guys want to expand on before we hop off, or anything else you want to share, talk about? Where you want to go?
I got nothing.
You got nothing? You're good. You got anything else there, Trevor, you want to share with us?
Well, I was just looking at some stats too, and I know this
Mhm.
year they released that we reached last year nearly 50,000 suicides in the United States, and that was a record high. And when I looked it up, it says that on average, and I guess this includes just every public school, the average graduating class, it says is 136 people. If you take 50,000 and divide it by the amount of days in a year, that puts you at 137 people that we lost per day.
Per day.
So we're losing nearly a whole graduating class on average
On
per
average,
day.
yeah. That is
That's crazy.
heartbreaking. Yeah. And to think we can prevent some of that just by reaching out to our loved ones. If you haven't heard from someone in a while, just reach out to them.
Yeah, see, I
Man, that
always say,
breaks.
oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying that breaks my heart. Go ahead, love.
Yeah. I was just saying, when we talk about, like the missing child cases and we talk about putting up flyers, I'm always like, my thing is tell five. Tell five people about this case, whether you hand them a flyer or just tell them. And I feel like it's the same way with mental health. Reach out to five, three, doesn't matter. Just stop. You have a little bit of time and reach out to three people. Reach out to five people. Just say, hey, how you doing? Hey, you want to talk? Hey, anything like that. Because
Yeah.
if you make someone feel like they're worth you reaching out to them, to you that may just be a 2-second text you sent, but to them that may really spark in them, hey, someone cares enough that they know I exist. I'm not just here existing. They know I'm here and they want to talk to me.
I love that. I truly do. It's so true because I feel like a lot of times people just want to know that they're wanted and that they're needed and that they're appreciated. And it's so easy for us to just reach out to our loved ones, and I know I'm guilty of it myself, not doing it enough. Not doing it enough until I get a wake up call from like my kiddos or something saying, "Hey, you need to reach out more," and friends. And so I love that. I think we'll try to like write down 5 different people for a week and do that, and then it'll become a habit.
Yeah, and of course I say these things. I'm preaching to the choir. I'm not up here like do these things.
Right.
I better at all of them, but I just feel like we as a whole, as people, myself included, we really strive to do these things. We create a community that breaks these chains and these stigmas, and it'll only help people.
I agree. Yeah, I get that you're not preaching or you are preaching to the choir. There's so many things that we have great ideas on what to do and we aren't implementing them, but it'd be so easy to do. Yeah, I'm really bad about it too, perfectly just reaching out and trying to keep in touch. Oh, also not feeling like a burden. Sometimes it feels like it would be better for others if you're not there. Oh my God. I hate
Yeah, I've felt that way before, and
that.
it's crazy how much you actually aren't a burden, like, to other
Not
people. Like, just by talking, you're not necessarily a burden to them, especially if you talk to someone for 10 minutes out of their day. Like, most of the time, people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, it's good to talk to you," like that sort of thing. Especially someone you haven't caught up with in a minute.
well, perfectly. Some people like that. Like one of the things Marshall likes is that I'm always up at 3 in the morning, so he can just call at 3 a.m. So some of your people, I guess maybe we need to make mental notes of what our people like and like, oh, I need to contact these guys before 10 a.m. and these are free to contact after. So
No, I
yeah,
I just call whenever. I will literally call any of my friends and just like if they don't answer, I'll just call the next one. Like and they'll eventually get back to me. So I'm not worried about it. They'll just be like, "Oh dude, I'm sorry I missed your call." I was like, dude, it was 2 in the morning. I understand you not answering. But if you did answer, I would have talked to you.
That's true. And you're right, Cappy. Uh, Life is rough right now for a lot of people, but reaching out is important. It's very important to stay connected. I think that's my number one takeaway from this is just contact your people. Check
Yeah,
in on your people. It's interesting that people think speaking their feelings puts the person they are talking to in an uncomfortable situation. So you should keep it to yourself. That seems to be how many feel. Yeah, but I guarantee you, most people are appreciative and they want to hear about what's going on in your life and what you're feeling, and especially if you're struggling. I can't think of many people who would be like, "Oh yeah, I don't care, leave me alone." Most people are there for you. It's just issues within ourselves. We struggle to be the one to reach out and say, "Hey, I need an ear. Hey, I need to talk." Healthy communication, healthy boundaries. The other day I had a situation I had to go to a group of friends and be like, "I just need to vent." It's okay. Like, I don't need you to solve the problem. I don't need a solution from you. I just need to get this off my chest because I don't want to keep it inside. I think all too often we forget to do that with people. We need to find people that it's okay to do that with. That they don't have to solve the problem. They don't have to help come up with a solution. They're just there to listen. Those are the best kinds.
definitely. It's having somebody who's an ear. And on like the topic of not feeling like a burden, at least
Mhm.
for me, there's 100% speaking from experience. When I felt like that, one way I had to communicate that to be able to break that mindset is say that. I would say that. I would be talking to somebody and I'd be like, hey, I really don't want to feel like a burden, or I feel like I'm burdening you.
Yeah.
And then they would reassure, they'd be like, hey, Trevor, you are not burdening me. You're okay. I've been through this. Let's talk. And then it kind of gives you that reassurance of, hey, okay, you can, let that thought go. You're not burdening them. And then you can kind of move forward in your communication.
I agree. I often emails that I get like, "Hey, I'm sorry to bother you," or "I really didn't want to put this on you," or something. It's like, no, no, don't be sorry at all. Please reach out whenever you need to, especially if you're getting to that point. Please, please reach out. I'm happy to listen and type back as much as I can. I would much rather, spend my time having a conversation with someone than hearing a story the next day about
Yeah.
how they're no longer with us.
As the quote goes, it's like, I'd much rather hear your story than read your obituary.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. So true. Right? Not a burden at all. My daughter gets busy with life and doesn't call me enough. It always depresses me. Be real. I understand that. I don't have the closest relationship with my parents. And I used to get in this headspace where I was very similar to that. Like, oh, why doesn't my mother just reach out to me? Why doesn't she try to have this relationship with me? And I realized I'm not doing it back either. So and just start hounding her with texts and calls, and eventually, you know it opened up the door that she now it's just a two-way street. So I would encourage you to just contact her um at an appropriate amount, because I do know our kids get to feeling like, hey, quit hounding me. But
Oh
if you just
yeah,
keep doing
and
it, it'll be helpful.
if your kiddo is anything like me, I'll just be like, "Yo, mom, need you to shut up right now." Like,
Well, I just told him to be real and honest with us. We've tried to always foster open communication with our kids. And I'll tell you all this. One of the things about having children, when you tell them, you can tell me anything, you have to mean it. And it's really hard sometimes. It's really, really hard to not have a visceral reaction to something that they're telling you. But if you want them to continue to come to you and tell you the tough stuff, you have to be willing to sit there and take it in and try to look at it objectively and not fly off the wall.
Well, clearly, if you had to come up on panel with you and discuss mental health, I think you did a good job at that.
Thank you. He's pretty awesome. When I want to vent, I don't want any right. I just let him know that, because sometimes we get in that space, right, where we think we have to solve the person's problem, and that's that's not a negative thing. I think we just do that naturally. We're problem solvers, people in general. We want to solve the problem. So sometimes it's really nice to remind people, I'm not asking you to do that. I just want you to hear me. Yes, I agree. Yes, and there's anonymous hotlines. You can always dial 988. I know Perfectly and Tragedy Pimps have been dropping some other ones in here. Yeah, there's lots of places that you guys can reach out to. Can't complain if you aren't trying to make the same effort you expect. That's true. That's true. My mom used to reach out to me and I'd ignore it. Now I regret those missed calls. Oh, perfectly. So, one of the things I did for my kids when they turned 16 is we got keychains that had their grandma's thumbprint on. And we also put the last text message that she sent them on it. And I think that that is so huge what you just said right there. Now you regret those missed calls and those missed connections. And that's why I just encourage reaching out to one another so you don't have those regrets.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy because that was one of the things that like I remember grandma texted me and I don't remember the
Mhm.
whole text, but I know at the end she said I love you and I didn't text it back. That's probably like one of my bigger regrets in life is not
Yeah.
getting to say that back. So that's one of the things when my buddy passed away last summer. That's one of the things I'm like super glad I got to say to him. Um, just in regular conversation, I always tell my friends I love you, just because it's like, hey, I don't know if I'm gonna get to see you again. So one of the things I get to hang my hat on is like I did get to say, hey, I love you. So
Say it
you
often.
know,
Some are
yeah,
not free enough with I love you.
yeah.
Mm, my dad has somewhat what called John Wayne syndrome. He is old school. Nobody talks about BCA or depression. That is my dad. Only parent. Oh, honey.
Hey, listen,
Sorry.
someone that's old school like that, because that's still a thing, like within the military. Like a lot of those guys are old school. That they used to get beat up by some of their higher ups and whatnot whenever they first got in. So they're like old school like that, and they still want to play those pranks and whatnot. Like some of those guys are like that, and they don't want to talk about their feelings or anything like that, because like I mean they were harassed basically coming into service. But I noticed a lot of like my sergeants have like started to change that, where it's like, hey, like we want to keep people in the Air Force, so why would you be mean to them, like that sort of thing. But there's definitely still it's a weird transition. Definitely a weird transition. I'd say if you're around the age of 30 and younger, like within the military, there's definitely starting to be more of a transition to that, at least in the Air Force. I don't know. There's probably some other people that would disagree, but you know, uh,
I think that
definitely.
that stigma kind of transcends more than just the military. It was a question I was going to ask you guys is do you find it harder to talk to um, older generations, say 30 and up, which I laugh at saying that's an older generation, but for you guys it is, or say 40 and up. Do you find it harder to talk to adults like that about mental health or your own age group,
I mean, it's definitely different.
you think?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I think it's with I find it easier with people I've already connected with in my age group
Hmm.
because we can see a lot of the same people older than us have been through the same experiences, but sometimes when you're closer in age, you've been more recently in those experiences. Not always, I know, but sometimes,
Right.
like if you're having a lot of stress about going to college or, relationship problems as a young adult or different things that you can kind of relate to with someone at the same age has helped me. But then you also have people who are older that have been through things that you haven't or things you're starting to process and they've processed them 10 years in the past or something. And so for me, that would also help because I can see, hey, you've made it through this. You can help me.
Well, and you're right. There are some life experiences that it is so valuable to take their advice on. But you guys are also a completely new generation. Like I said, having gone through my adolescent years and into my teen years without this internet world, and then the latter teen years on in it, I can kind of see both sides of it. But there is a generation out there who it's completely different for. And so I don't think some of us that are older take that into account when talking to you guys about your issues because it is a completely different world that you guys are growing up in. And I know every generation says that, right? Every generation says it's, I miss the good old days or it's different. But with the onslaught of social media and the internet and things like that, it is vastly different. It's crazy.
I definitely feel like when you pass more than like one generation up, then you definitely start to see that divide. Like I could talk to someone about at least a lot of that stuff that's one generation up. And when you start getting older and older, I feel like you do have that divide because there's been, like you said, social media, a lot of things that we've had in life that they didn't, and there's just that big gap. And there's also a different expectation on mental health for a lot of people that age because that's all they knew. You know, our generation right now is trying to push that, but their generation really didn't. So it's one of those things that they're kind of, their ways are different.
It's true. Very, very true. Mystery murder chick, you're saying that your dad was like old school, and they didn't talk about cancer at all. Like women just dealt with it, or the type of generation where, you know, dad didn't join in the birthing suite or whatnot. That is a completely different generation. You're right. Independent Thinker said, I'm just commenting, have been listening. I just want to remind viewers to be careful not to depend on people you meet here to be there when you need someone to talk to because they will disappoint. That's absolutely a possibility. It is a possibility. I think you can encounter that in any area. The important part is to continue to reach out to people, not necessarily on this platform, but in whatever means you need. If reaching out to someone here is beneficial, then yeah, absolutely do that. But if it means connecting with an old friend on Facebook or, you know, contacting your neighbor, sometimes just walking outside and chit chat, you know, shooting the shit with the neighbor or someone like that will help improve your mood. But I get what you're saying, and I agree. You got to be careful with some of that too.
Is that
what? Said they're proud to be your old friend, T-Rev.
Hey, likewise. And on that last issue, there definitely is that I've experienced with people who do, not with this platform, but just in general, is I spent a while not talking to people because people would leave. Like, you know, you open up about your struggles and then people suddenly separate from you. It's one of those things. It's like, it was cool when everything was going well and, you know, you could hang out every day and all was good. Then you bring up, you know, your struggles and suddenly they're like, whoa. And suddenly, you know, you're not as close friends anymore. They really they can't be there for you. So I do see that as well, which is why I hope that people know, like, it's important that if someone reaches out to you, that you're really there in whatever capacity they need, because if you separate from that, that could really hurt that person.
That's very true. We don't look at it from that side often enough. You guys are easy to listen to, but there are too many bad actors for me to be comfortable enough to real things. Right. That's what I'm saying. When we're talking about, you know, reach out to connect with someone, it does not have to be on this platform at all. You can connect with other people. It's just a reminder to connect in general, to talk to someone, anyone. Political and religion is a huge gap. Older folks have a totally different view and you can't change their mind. It's like running into a wall to try to get them to see those issues differently. That's true, Rue, sometimes. And I think mental health is one of those very big issues that some people are dead set on, unfortunately, for some people. Yes, check in on those mamas. That is so true. My favorite part when I had my kiddos is that our community put together food drives. And so the people would bring food for like 3 weeks to a month. And sometimes just having that person bring over your dinner and me being able to talk with an adult for 10 minutes that wasn't my husband was amazing. So absolutely check in on those new mamas too. And the ones that have like toddlers. They need your prayers big time. Oh, my goodness. I like that too. Be still. She said, I'm older now. I'm older, 69, and a lot of young people come to me because there's a lot of value in an older generation. Any of them. I love it because there's so much they can teach us and things that we don't look at. It absolutely is nonsense. But when speaking directly to mental illness, there's a lot on this platform, and a lot of those don't have anyone in real life. Right. That's why I would encourage you, if you're not comfortable with reaching out to someone that you've gotten to know in here, like 988, some of those other resources that, you know, if you don't have someone in your real life, there are resources out there to connect with someone. And, you know, when you reach out to like 988 and some of the other platforms here, like Perfectly has been sharing, those people aren't going to betray you. They're not going to bite you in the back and share everything that you spilled to them or any of that. So they're very valuable resources to have. Well, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. Did you have any other parting thoughts, or do you think we touched it all?
But I think we
I think we touched a lot.
yeah, I
Hmm.
think it's a conversation. Just really, like you said, honing in on communication. And like, you talked about it the last few times, it's not, there's no perfect answer for who you reach out to, or there's no right size fits all with
Right.
someone struggling. But starting that journey of reaching out and not letting it get worse is always a good step. No matter if that journey takes you to therapy, that journey takes you to being medicated, just takes you to finding a new hobby, whatever that takes you to, just make that first step so you can move forward and heal yourself, because that's what everybody deserves. Everybody deserves to be happy. Nobody deserves to sit
Absolutely.
there and let it eat away at them while nobody else even notices.
Yeah, we all deserve that. You're right. Knowing our self worth, that we are all worthy of happiness. We're all worthy of being heard and being seen. Okay, Brianna, will ignore you. But we are all worthy of those things and we absolutely deserve them. So don't forget, reach out to someone, anyone. If asked, then I give my opinion and advice. I love that. Be still. Anything else from you, Marshall? Are you good?
No, I gotta go meet up with the boys to go play pool.
Reach out, connect with those friends. Good deal. Thank you guys so
Hmm.
much from me, from everyone in chat, from everyone that's going to listen later. I truly, truly, truly appreciate hearing you guys' point of view on this. And it's a lot of great things that you guys said that I need to take into account and put into action. And I appreciate that. We have a lot to learn from each other.
Definitely. And I really appreciate you having me up. And Marshall, it was great meeting you. And hopefully we can, continue these people having these conversations.
I
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely.
Thank you, boys. Have a great. Sorry, it's just habit. My own son, I'm gonna call him boys, but thank you guys. Thank you a lot for coming
Absolutely.
in. Here's Trevor's link. Don't forget to sub up. You guys
All
have a
right,
good
I'm
night.
out of here.
Thank you, son. I love ya.
Love you too.
Yes, AMAC, you're right. Your story is not done. I am so glad that you guys had such a great conversation with Trevor and with Marshall. It was when I started seeing him put out these videos and I read his story again, go check it out. I didn't want to go over that again because it is a lot, I know, to do that. But go check out his story, go look at the videos that he's putting out. And like that one that I played, it just lifts my mood every time I see it. So don't forget to do that. Don't forget to touch grass and connect with someone, anyone. Like independent thinker said, though, be careful on here, but there's resources out there. Much love to all. Remember, you matter and to give tomorrow a chance. I love that. Give tomorrow a chance. Me too, Rue. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thanks for showing up. I know we already had a long one earlier, but um, had this pre-scheduled with Trevor, and I'm glad he could show up and hang out with us. So I'll see you all on the next one. Love, love.